Welcome, everybody. Today we have Connor on the podcast where we're going to be talking about how he grew an email marketing agency to over 30 clients. Connor, welcome.
Thanks very much for having me, Michael. Very excited for this and very excited for the viewers to hopefully get some value out of this.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, to start off, the basic question we always kick things off with, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so my name's Conor Sunderland. I'm from Ireland, from a place in the southeast of Ireland. Currently based in Dubai though. So I run an email and SMS marketing agency for e-commerce brands specifically. Been doing that since August of 2021 officially. And yeah, obviously we've grown from there to having over 30 clients. More of kind of a boutique agency in the sense of like what we do for clients is very custom. Like this is actually a level that in terms of client count, we're actually going to look at staying at for the foreseeable future because the biggest agency isn't necessarily the best agency. It's the client. It's the one that gets the best kind of results for their clients. Really is what the best agency is, and that generally is easier to do when you're smaller. So I like to focus on having a really good quality of clients and kind of making sure we've really happy team members and that sort of a thing. So yeah, began in August of 2021. Before that, I'd actually worked as a sales closer for a couple of agencies, a couple of kind of coaching businesses as well, and I didn't necessarily like being on the phones all day and kind of being on Zoom and that kind of a thing. I would say, so I've gotten a bit older now. I'm 25 years of age. Started when I was 22. I actually found I seem to be getting more introverted as I get a little bit older. So I kind of like to be focusing more on building, kind of more on the client results and kind of getting the right team members in and that sort of a thing. But yeah, we started off in August 2021. I was closing for an ads agency at the time, who were still very good friends of mine, and they had a couple of clients who actually wanted email marketing services, and this was something I was looking at doing. So when we began, I was like, okay, well, this is interesting. And I brought it up to him. I was saying, look, I want to kind of go into kind of the more email marketing space. And he was like, yeah, that's cool. And I was saying, well, let me white label for two of your clients because there were two of them who had asked him and he didn't have an intro to kind of send them for someone who's good at email marketing. I was like, look, I'll do this for free. Get the case studies, and they'll obviously have far better retention in your service because they're going to stay on for longer because we're going to be building things out for however long it's going to take. And they're obviously going to want to have those benefits. And we wound up really smashing it for those two clients. And I kept working with one of them for a good while. They ultimately wanted to bring things in house. But yeah, that was sort of how we got the first couple of clients. I was like, okay, well, look, I know you. Let me just get case studies, in the beginning. And I think that's something that a lot of people could do a bit more time focusing on because you see these headlines maybe more so in terms of kind of getting clients for X amount or whatever it is. But if you focus on getting really, really good at the core skill that you're actually servicing clients with, you'll see far better results in the long term. Now, yes, you're not going to be making money off your initial clients in the beginning, but beginning you don't have anything. You need to develop case studies. You need to become good at the thing because I'd done courses in before I began working with those clients. But when the rubber meets the road, it's kind of a different story. I remember first getting into Klaviyo and being like, oh my God, I've seen this in the course, but how do I actually do all of this stuff? And we just poured so much time and effort into those clients that we got them really good results. I'd met my business partner a couple of months before and we'd done some kind of small projects together on the sales closing side. And then I kind of brought up to him that summer. I was like, hey, like let's go into kind of email marketing. We have this intro. I think it's a really good long-term business. And we began doing that. So we kind of white labeled in the beginning to kind of get our first kind of few clients and just get those case studies and made sure that those clients were extremely happy with the work that we'd done. And they absolutely were. And we got great case studies, out of that. And then we sort of were able to parlay that, I suppose, into getting actual clients. We kind of got some kind of small clients. As we say, we had a lot of muck on the books in the early days, and then we kind of got to increase the quality over time of our client base.
Well, awesome. Thanks for giving us your starter story. And from there, I have kind of three takeaways I'd like to highlight. Obviously you grew quite fast, from 2021, we're just a couple years to grow to that size is really impressive. And three things I noticed from your story. One of them is that you were already working in this space before you went into full entrepreneurship. That's a really common thing I've seen where, people who have worked for a marketing agency or maybe whether that's an online style marketing agency or a traditional one, or people who've worked in sales, I think that's a really big advantage because you're getting to learn with someone else paying you. You're already developing the skills, getting paid to do so, and also you actually have money to get started. So before I get to the other two takeaways, one question on that: what actually got you into sales in the first place?
So this is a funny enough story in that a mutual friend of ours, Alex Hayden, I
Yeah.
saw he'd been retweeted by now a close friend of mine named Logan Feisenmeyer. People might know him off Twitter as Log Fits. And Logan retweeted Alex's Black Friday offer, which was kind of a coaching program to get people into remote sales. And I've been looking at the space for months. This would have been, so this is Black Friday 2020. So it would have been, I remember it was the 28th of October, or 28th of November, rather, 2022. And I remember seeing this. And I got into that, and Alex's cohort was actually full, but I found the payment link on his website and I paid it before he could say no. It was most of the money I had in my bank account. It was $2,000, which was most of the money I had because I'd just been working in a supermarket up until that point over the summer back in Ireland. And I got into that, and he placed me with that ads agency, which ultimately wound up being the person, the people that we had white labeled email marketing for. And I kind of had a couple of clients that I was closing for, and the reason I kind of got into sales first was because I had an inkling I could be quite good at it, rather than more kind of building heavy things in the beginning. I thought, okay, well, this would be me kind of sort of swimming with the tide, and that got me started, and I really honed that skill. So I was confident starting an agency. I was like, look, if I can book calls, I will close a good amount of those. And like you were saying, of a lot of people getting into, I suppose, working at an agency first, is in the beginning, it's tough for us, particularly I'd say to be tougher for you because you've been in the space for so long and you've been an entrepreneur for so long. But when you're beginning, you have so many doubts about literally everything. You don't know anything at that point. You're even going in putting DNS records into your home domain to attach a website to it. And you're like, oh my God, am I doing the right thing here? And it's so different to anything that you've ever done before. And so your mind is almost attacking you when you're doing, you're like, oh, is this even going to work? Is this all a scam? Like, can I even make money doing all of this? And, that's just talking about setting up bloody DNS records for a website. And then you have to go and learn how to outreach people, and you have no case studies, and you're trying to outreach them with confidence. And then you're getting on the phone with them on Zoom, and you're like, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing here. And then you have to, then if that goes well, you get the lovely burden of having to now deliver the service and learning that. So you don't know anything at that point. There are so many moving parts, and your mind is literally attacking you while you're trying to do all of these things because it's so outside the realms of anything that you've done previously through education or employment. And it gives you a good time to sort of normalize things for yourself. I tried to put myself back in this mindset because now it's been, I suppose, 3 years that I've been doing online business. But you need a period of time to allow it to become normal for you, that this is what you do, to be in this space and just getting a sense and just asking questions around the place. So I'm closing for agencies and coaching businesses. I just ask them questions of, oh, and so how does the fulfillment process work? And this will obviously help me selling for them. But back in those days, but you just start asking questions, and then I got on. I remember a consulting call with the famous cold email wizard, who's now a very close friend of mine. We do a lot of work together, and I remember getting on a call with that good friend of mine, Joe, and the ads agency I was closing for, and it was like a consulting call with cold email wizard, and I was able to sit in on that and just learn a bit more about the outreach process and how all that was working. So, provided you're doing very good work, the key thing if you're going to be learning a lot is you need to be providing a massive amount of value to that business, and you need to be working your arse off really to deliver that value. So for that agency, I mean, I was of course doing all the calls, but I would be like a wolf going after people on the plains of Mongolia, to follow up with people and make sure I was closing deals because I recognized the value of the opportunity that I was presented with, and the same with other companies that I was working with. I would be an absolute dog on the leads that were assigned to me, and that's very key to get that period of time where it becomes normal. And I would always say to people, survive first, just do something first, and don't necessarily worry about the immediate money that you're making because you're not going to make a lot of money even in the first year. You're really not. It's very rare cases that people actually do that in. So to be able to do that, it was a massive blessing. And I think I came into the space without that much confidence. I didn't come in thinking on business was definitely what I wanted to do. Certainly not. I came in thinking, look, we'll try this, we'll see how it works. But I didn't really know. It didn't online business. I didn't just see a model on YouTube and be like, oh my God, that's amazing, I need to do that. I was like, look, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to dip my toe in. I don't want to run a business right away. I mean, that's a lot to take on. And even now, now we've grown. We have, I think, 16 people on the team. It's a lot because they're team members who maybe have families and they have mortgages and they have different things like this. It's I don't, for somebody I was saying to a friend over the weekend, he's like, oh geez, this is going very well. I was visiting a friend who lives up in Dublin, and I was saying, yeah, it's great, but like, I'm not sure you would necessarily want to be me either, with the kind of pressures that come with running a business. So absolutely fantastic opportunity to have been able to do that. I highly recommend that to someone who's maybe looking at certain models and they're not 100% sure that this is maybe what they want to do. See, can you get into some kind of role working for someone in the space and just see if you like it? And you're of course earning money there, even if it's a nominal amount. You're now in the space and working, and you're getting your toes wet.
That's a great explanation of your story. And everything you mentioned there was actually doing the work and learning the skill. Because a lot of people, and this is my point two I had from your story, is that a lot of people I talk to, they get attracted to the lifestyle and the idea that everything's easy because the way things are sold to you is don't do your own sales. Your client outreach is automated. Your fulfillment is outsourced to an underpaid media buyer, right? It's like that is what is sold in terms of a dream. So I love how you actually learn the skill because one thing that I consistently see is people who immediately try to outsource everything without doing any learning generally fail. And people who obsess on the skill are willing to do free work and actually get good results are going to have great retention and they're going to grow exponentially faster because just alone that retention is going to make all their outreach easier because they can spend more to get a client. They're going to grow faster, and just in general, they're going to have more social proof to spin around the whole flywheel. So I really liked how you actually focused on building that skill, and as opposed to just outsourcing. And also, there's an ethics thing too, where I see a lot of agencies where they find somebody from a third world country, like you mentioned, who maybe is depending on their mortgage, and they promise them all this work when they've never got a client, and it's just not a very good thing. So the fact that you learned your skill, actually mastered it, got your first clients, and then are growing a team of like I'm guessing mostly full-time people, that's really cool.
100%. I think it was maybe you or potentially Felipe who I think I'd first heard the concept of, yes, you don't need to be doing everything in your business, but you need to have done everything at some point in your business to understand how it works. I don't, let's say if you were in that first boat where you are outsourcing everything, let's say something goes wrong, what are you going to do? Do you know how to fix things? Do you know there are many tasks now where I'm not the one doing them, but I could go in and I could manage an account very bloody well. I could still write copy extremely well. I still know how designs should look and how like the key elements of design and how it actually works. I know, of course, the whole outreach process, the whole sales process, I still do the sales. But if something goes wrong and you've been outsourcing things from the beginning, what are you going to do? You're of course going to lose that client because there are cases where things don't always go perfectly, and there are many cases where the founder has to jump in and give a hand. And we had a lot going on for Black Friday, updating people's flows and that because we update their flows and sign up forms, which a lot of people don't do. They just do Black Friday campaigns for talking about email marketing agencies now. And there were a couple of overflow tasks, and of course I went in and did them. And there was no explanation needed. It was okay. I'm going to go in and do these and give it a hand where it's needed, because sometimes things happen and sometimes you have a lot of stuff going on and you need to be able to go in and help out your team, and the team very much respect when you're still willing to go in and proverbially sweep the floors, and you'll do everything like that. And if you're if you're just going to outsource everything from the beginning, how do you really expect to succeed? I've never seen anyone succeed like that.
Yeah, very, very rare. And that's if you get lucky. We're talking out of a lot of people. And another thing you mentioned is the respect part too. Your team respecting you for being able to actually do the work. I really like that as well. Now, the third point I had from your initial story was that you did white labeling. This is something where I see a lot of people who go into white labeling do really well. Because the whole idea behind white labeling is you actually need to know how to do fulfillment because you're actually doing the fulfillment. But white labeling is such a great way to get started. And a lot of people don't consider it as a way to grow because it doesn't sound cool or whatever. But I mean, I used to white label back when I first started, and like I still have a few white label clients on occasionally. But was you mentioned that white label is kind of opportunistic, but beyond it just initially being opportunistic, did you then go and look for more white label partners, or was it just for the first relationship?
So we've had one with a very close friend of ours, Kieran. Of course, we kind of began. He was he was further along than us in his journey at that point. He's been interviewed by you. I'd highly recommend anyone watching that to go and watch Kieran on that as well. He's a very, very intelligent guy. And he was at a further along stage than we were at the time. And we started to kind of grow more and more. And we had a couple of white label clients from him, and now kind of been more so referral partners. We send clients his way, he sends clients our way, and it kind of has worked a bit more like that as we've sort of grown. He's not taking on any clients at the minute, and there's someone who needs an ads intro right now today, and he's not taking anyone on. So I'm like, Kieran, please. But yeah, so that, I think it's a phenomenal way to do things, because you're able to learn the skill, and yeah, you don't get paid much, of course you don't, but you're able to build a relationship with someone who knows. Let's say if you're at an earlier stage and someone's further along than you can have a similar situation to what we had, where you start to grow more and more, and you're able to sort of have more of a back and forth dynamic with that person. I think it's a phenomenal way to do things, because the kind of meta concept there, when we're saying doing some free work for clients and then going to white label, is not that you're going around like Oliver Twist, but that you're not so arrogant that you don't take advantage of all the opportunities presented to you, humble as they may be. So any sort of opportunity that you have presented to you when you're not established, of course, take it, because you need to build yourself up. Yes, you may not make money from that or make any money from that, but who knows? Maybe that client is in a strange niche, and you're then speaking to a client in 9 months or to a prospect in 9 months' time, and they're in a similar enough niche, and they're like, well, do you have any case studies from this niche? And you may not have been paid for that job, but then you have this case study here that you can say, well, yeah, here's what we've done previously in a niche quite similar to yours, or in your exact niche, and that could be the clincher that makes them want to sign with you over someone else. So I think, like you were talking about there about the flywheel. Another thing people don't talk about. This is quite a foundational concept, and it's something that real implementers talk about, or doers talk about. People like yourself, getting social proof. It is a flywheel. It is absolutely a flywheel, and that machine, like you were talking about, where you get a client, you get them results, you get the case study. That then feeds back into you getting more clients, and when you have more case studies in niches all over the place, these are so many things that you can draw on to sign new clients, which then leads to you getting another result for the client that you sign off the back of that case study, getting a case study from them, and then you put it back into the flywheel. And all of a sudden it starts to spin faster and faster and faster and faster until you have a real machine that you're working with. So that's one foundational principle as well that I've I suppose codified in my own mind, is that do not focus on cash over your skill set. I mean, immediate cash over your skill set, because it is ultimately your skill set and your social proof and your brand long term that's going to lead to that money later on. And I would just highly recommend people focus on skill acquisition, focus on becoming really, really good at what you do. And if you're doing that over the long term, you're in it for the right reasons, and do it over the long term, you will have the good outcomes that you seek.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And on the topic of social proof, you've obviously built a bit of a personal brand, not a bit, but a good personal brand. You're doing interviews now, I believe, too. You have a following on Twitter. How has your personal brand played into that role of social proof and actually getting clients and meeting people?
It's absolutely part of that flywheel in terms of how you're able to present yourself. So my Twitter would be my biggest one. My name is at Conor Trains, on that, Conor with one N. And that's been really good in the sense that I really like Twitter. And I think for anyone looking at personal branding, all platforms work. So that's one thing to factor in. All platforms work. And it's just, what do you enjoy posting on? I don't massively enjoy posting on LinkedIn, even though it's a platform that really, really works. So I like personal branding, not so much from a sort of mechanical perspective of, here's my content plan, I post this on this day, and it's very regimented. For me on Twitter, what I like about it is that it's very much like a town square. It's very interactive. You can just speak to people there. And a lot of clients that have come from Twitter have just been people I've kind of become friends with, and I DM them the odd time, and they might message you asking for some advice or to do maybe the odd bit of consulting with them. Just had a friend yesterday who's a very successful e-commerce entrepreneur ask if we could help upskill his internal team. I was like, yeah, of course. And these are the kinds of conversations that go on where, let's say you do some consulting with them, or maybe you work with them fully, at some point as well. That it can be a very, it's not even like a sales process, because you don't view it that way, but you're kind of in this, you're this friendly node in this big network, and you kind of build your standing within the network, and more people want to talk to you over time. That's what I really like about Twitter. So it's helped me be consistent on Twitter, the fact that I enjoy being on there and enjoy posting there. And it's not even so much like a content plan. I simply say, here's what we've been doing for clients recently, could be beneficial for another e-commerce entrepreneur who might be reading this. It's not so much in a pick me kind of
Sure.
machinated kind of way. So that's why I really like Twitter. And for anyone who wants to do some kind of personal branding, you may not like Twitter that much, but you could like YouTube, and YouTube works really well as and Michael, of course, you've got a great YouTube following, and YouTube's been very good for your businesses. I like YouTube somewhat as well. We post a bit on YouTube, and the other thing with content, so that would be the first thing, is look at a platform that you really like posting on. You may not like Twitter because there are some elements of Twitter where uh, you have some more rogue elements on Twitter, I would say, in terms of how people interact. It can be sometimes for certain types of people, it might be the nicest place to be at times.
Combative.
Yeah, very combative place. But then you might love LinkedIn, and LinkedIn could be a great channel. And I know plenty of people in the e-commerce space doing very well on LinkedIn, and that's working very well for them. Um, and within personal branding, then there's another benefit with it where you're able to actually weave it into the sales process. So you're able to use, let's say you have a good YouTube, or you have a good LinkedIn, or you have a good Twitter, or you've a good just whatever platform that you're on, you're able to sort of use that to to enhance your sales process by being able to weave lots of social proof into the process. And you can kind of, even with outbound leads, you can almost make them feel more inbound after a while, because you have so much social proof there, and they're like, okay, wow, these people are in the space a long time, and here they make very good content here, and oh my god, I can tell by this YouTube video that this person really knows what they're talking about. So YouTube hasn't been, we booked a call off YouTube last week actually, but they were in a different industry, but still it was a call booked. But YouTube has been really good, I suppose, more so for leads who might come from Twitter, or might come from referral, or might come from cold email, and it's very good to help warm those people up. So personal branding is quite a long-term play. You just got to find a platform that you really like posting on, and they all work. They all work really well. So for me, that's Twitter. That's definitely been Twitter for me, and kind of YouTube, I suppose, a bit. And I'd like to push LinkedIn a bit more, but LinkedIn just isn't my favorite platform by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, treat it in that long-term way. If you're building relationships with people and you're actually there to provide value, you'll get that back tenfold.
You mentioned kind of the indirect ROI, where you're not always just getting leads from the platform, but the social proof is helping you with your existing leads. One thing that we have seen that's huge, and this is for myself and my own outreach and for our clients, is literally putting a PS on a cold email that's, if you want to see more about me, here's my YouTube. That has been huge, because the amount of people who respond, hey, check out your YouTube channel, let's talk, it's a very large percentage. I mean, a YouTube channel and a cold email and a PS can 25 to 50% better results. I mean, it's a pretty big test, because you go from being nobody, even if you are somebody, you're still nobody in inbox, to, oh, this person is at least competent enough that they can speak on a topic on YouTube and people follow them, right? That social proof. Someone else can validate that you're legitimate, so they don't have to do all the research themselves. So, this is an idea even for your cold emails. Put your YouTube or Twitter as a PS. You might find that helps a lot.
I just made a note of that in my notes there. While you were saying that, I had to take that nugget there. I'll definitely give that a shot. 100%. That sounds phenomenal.
Yeah, we've literally had, like, for example, in ecom's very competitive cold email. We have some clients in ecom that have YouTube. They significantly outperform those who don't, like significantly.
Interesting.
We have one client in particular who does Google ads, who has a YouTube following, and I'm also shocked how he doesn't have that big of a following. It's like 20K, but I'm shocked how many times we get a response back. Oh, I saw a YouTube video a long time ago, because he does a lot of videos that are like ones you would search for, like technical videos, how to do this, how to do that. So a lot of these people have already just seen them, because pretty much every ecom brand has run Google ads or email marketing or Facebook. They just might not have done it right? But they probably looked up on YouTube at one point, and he's been doing this for so long that even though he doesn't have a massive following, they just recognize his face, which,
Very interesting. I think YouTube, if you can get it to work, really, for even if it's not for necessarily signing agency clients, but just in general, if you're building a personal brand, and let's say someone might, I don't know, even be a fitness coach, or they might be selling info products or whatever it might be. YouTube is absolutely the daddy of all platforms, in the sense that there's one quality YouTube has that the others completely lack, which is the almost half-life of content. It's almost infinite. You can have videos that blow up out of the blue that are 2 years old. Many creators talk about this. And that YouTube video, if you're doing YouTube consistently, that could a video that you made 1 year ago could lead to a call being booked today. Twitter definitely doesn't have that. The half-life of the post is very short. LinkedIn doesn't really have that, though the half-life of posts is a bit longer. And other bits, Instagram wouldn't really have that. So YouTube, I think if you can get it to work, is just it's a completely different animal to any of those other platforms, just for having that sort of element of a piece of content that you make could lead to huge returns in who knows how long. There could be a video that I made a year and a half ago that could lead to a client in June next year. Who knows?
Yeah, that's a great point. It's funny enough, the call I had before this was actually a YouTube audit. I was paying somebody who works with a lot of big YouTubers to audit my channel. And I hadn't been paying enough attention to this because they showed me that the videos in the last 90 days, my 5 top videos in the last 90 days are all over a year old, which is ridiculous. And one of his points, which may be useful for you, is like just make those same videos again, which
Interesting.
I had never thought about that, but it makes a lot of sense. Like in cold email, if you cold email somebody, 6 months later, if you email them again, they probably don't remember who you are. And even if they did look at your email, it doesn't matter. Apparently, if YouTube, that time frame is about a year. So what a lot of his clients do, and a lot of his clients are people you and me watch, they just make the same videos but do well every year, which is interesting.
Very, very interesting. And it makes complete sense. So it's interesting how people will see your face. I think if someone's on YouTube, you you instantly assume higher status of them than nearly any other platform as well. So you'll see someone, if someone's able to make a long form YouTube video about something, well, they must know what they're talking about, at least to an extent.
Yeah.
So when you see someone on there, and especially they have a good thumbnail and they've a good headline and all of these things, then it can lead to them perceiving you in a different way than they would on really any other platform, certainly a cold email. So yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. I think that's another tip I'll take with me.
Yeah, and I mentioned like content that lasts a long time. The only other comparison YouTube I can make is podcasts, which once you have some social proof, is such an easy thing to get on. I mean, for example, you're gonna be on my YouTube channel and someone looks up your name or your agency name, this is probably going to rank, which is added social proof that way, and also a bit of traffic. I mean, I did a couple podcast tours that were intentional, where I did outreach to podcasts, and I have calls coming in from podcasts that's on 3 years ago. So even for you, now that you're at this point where people are looking up to you, right? You have 30 plus clients, you have 16 team members, you're traveling, you're doing all these cool things. Like you have enough authority to get on most relevant podcasts. And there's tons in e-com space. So for you, that might be a great way to, leverage other people's audiences because all you have to do is answer questions and it's probably quite fun as well.
Definitely. That's another tip I'll take. You're full of the value nuggets today for me. I know everyone listening is going to be getting a lot of value from what you're saying, but I'm always learning from yourself and Felipe. So
Well, sweet. I think one of the last questions I want to ask a bit on the personal end. Well, two things on the personal end. So first is when did travel become part of what you're doing? Like, where did you want to travel before you got into business? Or is it something where you realize, well, hey, now I have the resources and time freedom, might as well do this? I'm curious, what's the story behind that?
for sure, I definitely did want to travel. So I finished university in June of 2020. Now, not a great time for traveling to finish university then, but I had lived in Istanbul in Turkey. So I was near a place called Sarıyer and kind of the European side of Istanbul. And I was there for a whole summer, and I somehow managed to finagle myself into teaching in this summer camp in a very posh university there, kind of the Harvard of Turkey, called Koç University. And it was through a friend of mine, his older brother had done this too for the previous 2 summers. And I was like, okay, let's do this. And I've always felt like kind of an explorer archetype. I like to try new things, and I always say I'll try anything once, within reason. But um, there, that sort of ignited, I would say, some kind of latent epigenetic stuff in my system. I was like, this is amazing. I would like to do more of this as much as I can. So I was due to go to Vancouver in summer 2020 after I'd finished university. And it's sort of a rite of passage, so to speak, for Irish people around the age of 20 or so. Generally, after your second year of university, you'll do what we call a J1 visa over to the United States. You'll stay in a city in the United States for about 3 months, or you'll go to Canada. So Canada was becoming this big thing at the time. So I said, yeah, I'll go to Vancouver. I got the visa and got all this stuff. And then obviously the pandemic kicked off in March of that year. So that thwarted those plans. And I was quite upset about that. My initial plan was to go there for the summer. Then I wanted to go to Barcelona for a year to teach English, and then Istanbul for a year to teach English. And I finished up university. I did economics and politics in university, so nothing marketing related. And I was like, oh damn. So that was the impetus to start an online business. And I did want to travel ultimately. So I'm back in Ireland now for Christmas. It's currently the middle of December as we record this. But I'd looked at a number of places, and at that point as well, I was getting quite good at Spanish. I've taught myself to speak Spanish fluently as well. So I wanted to go somewhere Spanish speaking. That was the thought process behind Barcelona. Of course, they speak Catalan, but everyone can speak Castilian Spanish there as well. And that was certainly something I wanted to do. So when I sort of had the means to do it more so, I was thinking, yeah, let's do this. And then the opportunity to move our business over to Dubai came up earlier this year. So that was when it all kind of kicked off. It was earlier this year around March. So we did 8 weeks in Dubai, did about 8 weeks or 6 weeks in Colombia, about 8 weeks or 6 weeks in Spain, in Madrid, and then did about 8 or 10 weeks in London, and then went back to Dubai. And now I'm home. I went to Marbella, then the south of Spain for last week just to visit a friend of mine who came on the podcast. And that was when that all came up. I really did want to travel and experience new things. Now I've learned a lot from doing that in the sense that if you're going to a place, minimum, I mean, absolute minimum, stay there for a month.
Yeah,
But now
I
we're
always
going
tell
to do
people
it.
to do.
Always stay there for a month. But now I'm going to do 3 month stints in places to sort of really set up and get the culture. I'm going to Argentina for January, February, and March of next year. And a couple of things on the traveling. So it's phenomenal, but you cannot let it throw you off course. You have to realize your business is absolutely the main thing. And so when you go traveling, you kind of write off, travel on a Saturday, write that day off completely, get set up on the Sunday, get some work in, get ready for the week ahead. And the whole first week, you need to really fight the urge to go and do touristy stuff. You'll do that the following weekend. So the first week is all impulse control. You really want to get out and explore the place, but you need to get a good week of work under your belt, in my opinion. Then go and do have a really touristy weekend then after that. So in Buenos Aires, I've really wanted to go there for years. So that's going to be the exact set. The Saturday we'll fly in. Sunday, I'll get a good work day in, work all the way through to Friday, work on Saturday morning, and then do a big touristy weekend Saturday afternoon and Sunday. And that's been phenomenal. And that's going to continue for a little while longer, for sure. I'd say it'll continue all of 2024, likely all of 2025 as well. And then we'll kind of see where we're at with it, because you always think you want to travel. And it's funny, the way the human brain works is that the grass really is always greener on the other side. So you'll be traveling somewhere and then you'll be thinking, God, I'd love a base. I'd love somewhere that I just love and I spend there year round. And of course, I have the business set up in Dubai, but if you saw me in real life, my hair looks darker on camera. I look very Irish in real life. I have very freckly skin and kind of lighter red hair if you see me in person. So I don't really hold up very well in the Dubai heat, especially when it starts to get hotter there around the summertime. So there year round isn't really a possibility for me. And it's a great thing to do when you're running a business. It's just you really have to practice that impulse control, and you need to really focus on work and keep your enjoyment really done in sort of pockets, in a sense, because ultimately the thing that's leading to all this is the business. And especially when you have team members and stuff like that, it's not even about you. It's about making sure that the business is running well, that your clients are really happy, and that your team have a very stable kind of setup. So you have to really be on your game when you're doing a lot of traveling.
Yeah, I am 100% with you on that. A month is the minimum, ideally longer. And I like what you mentioned because I do the same thing. I don't do meetings on Fridays, so I normally fly in on Fridays or Saturdays, and it's the same thing where one day is prep. That's your day for, oh, the internet doesn't work. Let's contact the host, replace the internet, replace an Ethernet cable. Oh, there's no table. Let me go buy a table. That's kind of your troubleshooting day. Is nothing will go exactly as expected, and then the following week is. I always look at it as like kind of earning the weekend. Another
Mm.
nice thing about spending a month in a place is like it's not like you're not going to go outside during that week. You're still going to go to local cafes and to local restaurants, and you're still going to go on a walk, probably just not doing touristy things. So kind of feels a bit more like living there, which is quite nice. Well, sweet Connor, I know we're coming up on time here. I have one last question for you. And that is, what is the goal of all this? So is the goal to build this, you mentioned you don't want to build the agency to 1 million clients. You're kind of happy where it is now in terms of, your team and client fulfillment. So what is next? Is it to start a software company or a course, or do you want to keep it like this to retire early? What do the next few years look like?
So I really love the agency, and it's really cemented that in the last couple of weeks in particular. It's really cemented that in my mind how much I love it, because like we're saying, the grass is always greener on the other side. That's just every human's brain is going to work like that regardless. It's something that you can't really change. It's our factory setting. So the focus within the agency is on excellence. So really documenting the agency top to bottom now, and focusing on getting better quality of clients over time. That's the real amount. We've settled at around 35 is where we'd like to keep it for the foreseeable. That's where we can sort of grow internally, is what we're calling it, rather than growing externally, making sure our systems and processes are really good, make sure that the results we're getting are outrageous, and that the team are growing a lot as well, and that they're very happy inside. Um, so that's really the goal with the agency, is excellence, and to be industry renowned and known really as the best, or at least one of the best, by everyone within, that just have that respect across the whole D2C industry. Now, like I was saying, the thing that had cemented that in my mind over the last few weeks, that how much I loved it, is that I've recently started a podcast in October of 2023. I was interviewing a lot of people for that, and that's something I really enjoy doing, but it's just as a side sort of thing. And what I realized from doing that is that, I'd looked at big podcasters and things like that, and I was like, God, that seems like an amazing way of living, and that sort of a thing. But that's the sort of uninformed optimism stage. And then you realize that building a podcast to be very large is a very competitive space, and it's not exactly easy to do so. And so then from, let's say, having the shiny object, a little taste of the shiny object, you're like, okay, well, I actually love this thing, and it's why I've been able to build it so well, is that I really enjoy doing it. And what I like about the podcast, because I'm going to push that, as kind of a side thing, is that I want to speak to every random kind of a person in the business space, but even people who are, I'd love to speak to a historian on the British Empire on a Monday, speak to an 8-figure ecom entrepreneur on a Wednesday, and then speak to a prison convict on a Friday. It would be getting a wide spectrum of life there. And I would say sometimes I display some kind of ADHD-like symptoms. In many respects, I think many entrepreneurs do. I think the shiny object is very strong in the entrepreneurial community. But having the podcast, it sort of enables ADHD in the micro, or sort of doesn't get sidetracked by ADHD in the micro, but enables it in the macro, where you can speak to all manner of different people, and it helps grow the podcast. But you're getting all of these different, you're satisfying the ADHD in the micro, and without getting thrown off course by it in the macro. And that's been very enjoyable, and hopefully meeting many interesting people through it. Like I've realized recently as well that any big inflection point I've had in my life is from meeting a specific person at a specific time. I think the podcast opens my exposure to those kinds of events, to meet people like that. So that's something I'd really like to push. But yeah, it's to really have an excellent service, be known, throughout the industry. And I know all the other things can kind of come along with that. But I'm not a very money oriented person either. So like, I don't, like, this watch is 35 euro. It's a Casio watch. I'm
God
absolutely in
tier.
love with it. God tier. Casio watches are highly underrated. But I'm not really money oriented in any sort of way. So it's not really to have watches or to have big houses or cars or whatever. I'm very happy just in a sunny place, working hard, training very often, lifting weights, doing jujitsu, eating good food, meeting nice people, and that sort of a thing. So very simple lifestyle, but doing hopefully some interesting things within my profession and the sort of work things that I'm doing that can satisfy a lot of curiosity, and yeah. So yeah, the goals are excellence, and then kind of we'll grow the podcast alongside this now as well. I've really enjoyed doing that, and yeah, very excited for the next few years, because I don't think my desires are so ridiculous that they will lead to a huge expectation gap in terms of what I'll be doing. So very simple guy. That's the long and short of it.
Well, love it, and I appreciate how you're putting one of your goals as your clients, because and your team, because that's not the typical answer, and that's not necessarily that people answer because they don't mean that. It's just the average young man is not thinking in terms of, well, what is my life mission? Well, helping my clients and my team. So really honorable there, Connor. thanks for coming on. I will make sure to have your agency link below if anybody want to work with Conor and experience the excellence themselves, and they can book a call with his agency. The description will be link will be in the description. Also, I will have your Twitter for any other agency owners or people who want to follow you, connect with you, ask questions, whatever. So Conor, thanks so much for coming on.
You too, Michael. Thank you very, very much indeed for having me.